let's open it up to questions uh, from questions and reports from the last week. So I'll give a 1-minute review of what we learned last week. We learned see, hear, feel, right? Which is a Vipassana technique, this kind of Shinzen's reformulation on Mahasi style noting. I think some of the really salient points about see, hear, feel is it really helps with self-knowledge. It helps you understand yourself, see yourself as you are, or at least more so. And it's also extremely portable, extremely useful in daily life and can be done almost constantly. All right, great. So that's my 1-minute summary of the class. How did it go over the last week with see, hear, feel?
Hi, Cedric.
Hey.
Can you hear me?
Yes, hey, DJ. Yep.
Okay, so I think the practice has gone very well.
Okay.
Okay, I really enjoyed the see, hear, feel, but I was wondering if we need to do see flow, hear flow, feel flow. Do you, is that a part of the practice?
Okay, so let me just define the term so that everybody knows what we're talking about. So flow
Sure.
is Shinzen's term for kind of change and actually impermanence and just, the flowy, energetic nature of life, right? And I actually think I left that out of the curriculum for this course. I think I put in its place just a breath practice because people like a breath practice. Anyway, so that is definitely something that's fine to attune to, this quality of how everything changes, right? Like here we can like take our right fist and clench it really hard and then release and then notice how the sensations of the right hand dissipate, right? And so that's flow. Or even like listen to my voice and listen how it comes in and comes out. That's flow. That's impermanence. So to kind of like pay attention to flow or impermanence while you do see, hear, feel is fantastic. It is very, very good. I strongly recommend it, although it wasn't part of the curriculum from last class. Did that speak to your question?
Yeah, thank you very much, Cedric.
Sure. Very good. Mm-hmm. Okay, what else is coming up for people? How did it go? What problems came up? What surprises? What insights?
Hey Cedric, can you
Hey,
hear me?
yeah.
Hey,
Hey.
So for me in particular, it was interesting doing See, Hear, Feel because it feels kind of opposite of like a breath meditation, where a breath meditation is you're creating an open space, and then See, Hear, Feel, you're just observing the space that you're in.
Sure.
And for me, it was interesting because I have ADHD and I didn't come like comfortable with that fact until I started getting heavy into meditation
Yeah.
a little.
Mm-hmm.
And I found the breathing concentration made me have this freeing feeling very early in it because I was always caught in my thoughts. And so I definitely struggled with letting my brain run off the rails. Well, not even letting my brain run off the rails. My brain running off the rails sometimes during See, Hear, Feel, but I definitely saw a lot of the practical side of it to be able to walk around.
Yeah.
Or randomly spot meditation when you are just stressed out or whatever. And instead of just doing breathing techniques, you can just focus on some sensations instead of your head. So that was cool. My only question would be is as I'm learning new techniques, how do I integrate them and what type of schedule do people kind of try and work out so that they can keep some skills up on different types of meditation?
This is a really good question. So, so you're saying, okay, you noticed some differences between see, hear, feel. Sometimes it was a struggle. You didn't get this kind of nice, pleasant, absorbed quieting of the mind feeling when you did see, hear, feel, like you do when you do breath meditation. And then also you're saying, hey, and the last part of your question was, okay, how do we integrate these kind of disparate practices? Like when do you do see, hear, feel? When do you do breath meditation? How do you kind of slot it all in?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. So let me answer the last part.
You can just answer that part. Yeah, that was the important part for me. Yeah,
Yeah.
just how to integrate. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that, well, firstly, it's generally recommended, like you often want to do a concentration practice first and then a Vipassana or an insight practice. So for example, let's say you have a 30-minute sit that you're going to do. It's very traditional to do, like, let's say 15 minutes of just breath meditation, like breath counting. And I think it's next class that I have that we teach the breath counting. The breath concentration practice. And so you would want to do the first 15 minutes of breath meditation because it gets you kind of absorbed and gets you actually into an altered state.
Mm.
And I actually think more quickly and better than a see, hear, feel practice. And then once you've got that kind of samadhi, that concentration, then you like do the insight practice, and then the absorption and the concentration from the concentration practice kind of potentiates the insight practice so that you go deeper with the insight practice. And then also, I think you're already intuitively figuring out when and how to do these different practices, because you noted, oh, hey, I can't do the breath meditation when I'm driving. I can't do it when I'm walking around, but you can do see, hear, feel when you're driving, when you're walking around, when you're doing the dishes, right?
Yes.
So naturally, see, hear, feel is a better match for walking around daily life informal practice. So that, I think, is speaking to the last part of your question. And then I want to go back to something earlier that you said, but is that speaking to it? And is there anything more around that?
Oh yeah, for sure. And it was funny because me and my accountability partner already came up with not 15 minutes. I never thought to go that long, but we were talking and I tried to just go in, and it was like me jumping in a highway for me if I didn't do breath
Oh, yeah,
meditation
good.
before it. And so I'd immediately get beat up, like licked up real quick, where I got anxious
Okay,
and stuff like that.
sure.
So I we both of us were like, yeah, we're doing at least 5 minutes. But I
Good.
guess if you got better at both of those practice, it would make sense to kind of even them out, because that was part of my question. Is I see the benefits of see, hear, feel, and yes, it is more of a struggle for me in that realm, but I wanted to have that practice kind of still there somewhere, even though probably don't want to do it all the time,
Yeah.
but I see that value in that every day. So yeah, you definitely hit like all of it on the head there.
Very good. And then also let me say that another aspect of organizing your practice is what you really want to do is you want to do a big body of work on a given practice. And in a sense, this course is set up to facilitate that. So each week you're getting introduced a new practice. And so you want to do it for that week and kind of like really sink into it and like master it and get your head around it. But yeah, and so you just kind of want to like, get it on lockdown, and then you can go back to it at different times, and then you can kind of pick and choose. So I would also mention that. And then another issue is that I just want to simply kind of contextualize that what see, hear, feel does versus, let's say, a breath meditation is very different. Both are mind training, but the parts of the mind that you're training are different. With concentration meditation, you're learning to focus. You're learning also to kind of get into samadhi, absorbed states, which can be very useful for developing wisdom, but it's like kind of a supporting factor to more of the wisdom meditations. And also actually it helps with many forms of mentalization and executive function, where you're like, okay, not this, I'm not going to have this thought. So it builds up a very important skill set. But then see, hear, feel builds up a different skill set. It builds mindfulness. So knowing what's happening in any given moment, kind of with just a open, non-judgmental, observing quality. And it also really teaches you to understand your internal experience. Like, oh, you have a body tension, and then all of a sudden you have like a strong emotion, and then a thought is triggered. And then if you're doing the see, hear, feel practice, you start really seeing how it works. And also you eventually get to a place where you no longer see it as so personal. And when that is seen, there's deep forgiveness and compassion that starts arising, because you know that the way that things are is not due to, like, the problematic way that things are is not due to somebody being an asshole or a jerk. It's just, oh, it's conditioning. We're all subject to conditioning. You kind of see it, you see it internally, and then you see it in others. So there's lots of different benefits. Okay, I think I've possibly covered the question. Let me read out a few of the questions here, and then we can open it up again. And it's fine for us to take a little bit of time with this. I think this is valuable. Okay, Camille says, is it normal for attention to stay on one note or place for a long time? I end up with here for long periods of time due to the background noise where I live. I think it's perfectly fine to just be focusing on here a lot. And you're going to develop certain skills by like really kind of staying in the auditory a lot. And it won't be the same skills as, let's say, paying attention to like the emotional body and bodily tensions and how they're co-arising and influencing each other. But you will build up, that is a legitimate application of see, hear, feel. So Camille, it's fine. Okay, Wagner says, yeah, it's fine if you need to leave a little earlier. That's no problem, Wagner. Chris Hauser says, yeah, me too. Lots of here. Other times I experience all feel. So actually what you can do is you can, just like I was saying, you can do a body of work on a concentration practice or on see, hear, feel. You can also do a body of work on just here, right? You can just do a body of work on feel out, on simply the body. Like, so this 30-minute session, I'm just going to do feel out. You could just do like body scans, and that's going to sensitize you to your kind of kinesthetic experience. So that's fine. Okay, another question from Samuel Aslam. I was able to meditate for 30 minutes a day, but wasn't able to follow through on the micro hits and walking meditation. That's fine. During my meditation, I found myself sometimes not being able to implement noting in the feel, see, hear capacity. Can you elaborate what noting really means conceptually and experientially? So I'm not actually quite sure what you mean by that, but noting and noticing are the same. So it's just simply being mindful, just noticing. Like, just listen to the sound of my voice, and there's this quality of you know you're hearing my voice. So I'm going to keep talking and just listen, but don't listen to what I'm saying. Just listen to the act of listening. So that is noting and that is noticing. And then now there's labeling. Labeling is here, 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 either out loud or internally. I think that I'm speaking to your question, but feel free to speak up if I'm not speaking to your question, Samuel. All right, Jesus asked last week, alone on a hike, doing see, hear, feel. Okay, cool, that's good. After a while, my senses got very vivid and clear. Right, that sensory clarity, very good. Colors on the flowers and the trees and the birds singing, everything was very crisp and beautiful. Even the colors of the trash on the side of the path were alive and beautiful. Fantastic report. Excellent, Jesus. All right. Rory says, I have practice based on Shinzen's system. This week I was trying out this kind of two-phase session of samatha first, which is like concentration practice, like often a breath practice, and then see, hear, feel technique. Also trying to do see, hear, feel as a background practice in daily walks. Okay, fantastic. And then let me just say what a background practice is. I think I maybe didn't clarify. So a micro hit is just when you do one kind of like a few notes. You just note for a few minutes and you just get a sense for what's happening. Background practice is like you're talking to your boss is speaking to you in a harsh way. You're like, oh yeah, okay, equanimity is one of the things I want to work on. I'm actually going to stay present, really listen to them, and try to remain calm and chilled out. That would be a background practice where you're primarily focused on your boss, but on the background, you're kind of trying to do a meditation practice as well. Okay, great. And then yes, to clarify, samadhi. Samadhi means concentration. It means like gatheredness. If any of you speak German, like zusammen, zusammen, Sammlung, or in like Dutch, Samen, togetherness. So it's like this quality of gatheredness. Okay. Matt says a state of intense, yeah, okay, there you go. He just defines the term. So Yannick says, "Hi, Cedric. If you feel comfortable answering this, could you tell us where you would place yourself on the four-path model of Theravada Buddhism? If not, that's totally fine." I can, yeah, sure. I can try to answer this. Let me say that I've never had any cessations that I know of. And often, like, cessations are kind of in Daniel Ingram's kind of model of how he sees things. They are kind of equivalent with path moments, or some cessations are. I've never experienced a cessation, but also most of my practice wasn't noting, although I did it for like 2 years. My practices have been more like the kind of emptiness practices of mostly open awareness and self-inquiry. And to speak to this question, the answer is I don't know, but I also think that many people, their experiences don't map on well to the Theravada four-path model. What I would say is I do believe that I've had the first, at a minimum, the first experience of emptiness and open awareness. And certainly my life has totally changed. Like 9 years ago, before I was practicing seriously, I was absolutely miserable most of the time, very depressed, very anxious. And that has all transformed, and life is much lighter and easier. And I feel like I certainly know what no self is. Emptiness, I've experienced it. It's part of how I see the world now. So that's not that's not answering exactly the question, but that's what comes up when I'm asked the question. So it's not a problem. All right. Rory says, I think he's just answering a former question. Samadhi is a whole range of states with different degrees of absorbed attention. The different schools have different uses and kinds of samadhi. That's true. Okay. Yep. All right. Any other questions or reports coming up from last week? Again, you can type them, and at this point, since we're done reading the questions, you can just speak up.
Hello.
Hey.
How you doing?
Good.
So I did a lot of hiking, walking, see, hear, feel. I noticed I had to sort of make an effort to relax. So I was like really screwed down tight and was see, hear, feel, and I was on watch for whatever, and I really wasn't present, actually, bizarrely. I wasn't really looking. I was just looking for that next feeling, really focused on, am I going to miss a C? Am I going to hear something and not register it, and not label it?
Sure.
So, yeah, I mean, I did make a conscious effort. I stopped and looked around and sort of chilled for a bit and just tried to soak in some visual information, and that helped. But yeah, it's just interesting that that I struggle so much with just relaxing in this practice. Yeah.
Sure.
I want to do it right.
Well, right. And yeah. One thing I like to say is you have to start where you are, right? And so a lot of times in practice and in life, people are trying to skip ahead and get something dealt with that's not actually what's confronting them. So in a sense, what the thing to deal with is to deal with the anxiety in the moment. And if there's anxiety around the meditation, then that's what is. And you open up to that. Yeah, I don't know if that's speaking to your comment at all.
Yeah, I think that's partly what comes before me relaxing is maybe recognizing that I'm putting a lot of pressure on myself. So certainly. Sure. Other than that, it's been pretty good. I did have an instance of sort of, I do get overwhelmed by feelings, and I've been doing a lot of, sort of traditional Western CBT kind of stuff.
Oh, that's good.
Which is really, really about here more than anything else. It seems, like you write down your negative thought and then you counter the negative thought. But I had a moment when I was doing See, Hear, Feel where I had a thought and it came with an image and it came with a feeling. Sure. And I was thinking, well, holy crap. I mean, this is why this is so overwhelming. It's like a complete takeover of my consciousness and everything. So that was definitely a nice insight to have.
Sure. And let me kind of double down on what you're saying and kind of explain it further. I think what you're saying is there's a lot of insight in it. So especially when we do Vipassana, we really start seeing how, okay, there are thoughts that arise, then there are emotions, and then there are body sensations, right? And then when they're all spinning all at once, kind of mutually triggering each other, that's when life is like really kind of in your face, very real and very heavy. Whereas with the see, hear, feel practice and other Vipassana techniques, and also even other meditation techniques, we start, we take a divide and conquer approach, is what Shinzen says. So, you just see and you just notice just the thoughts as they are. Like here's an image thought. Here's an auditory thought. Now here's tension across the chest. I tell you what, let's actually do this as a very brief guided meditation. So let's all sit up straight and think of something that is triggering to you. And immediately I get like a tension across the body, across the upper stomach. So when you think of something that's triggering to you, check in with the body and feel the body activation. And now see that as just the body. And now go back to your triggering event or thought or person, and then check in with the emotions. What emotions are coming up? So for me, it's a kind of sadness and defeat. Okay, good. Now go back to the triggering thought or person or event. And then just look at the image thoughts that are arising. And then notice how that triggers more emotions and also the body. And then one last time, go back to the triggering thought, person, event, and then listen to the internal talk that arises. And then now just drop all of that, but notice how each one of them unto themselves is not a huge problem. Any one of them just kind of suspended in midair, just happening on its own, isn't very real. It's rather dreamlike. But then see how when they're all turning together, it's all very real and quite overwhelming. Okay, good. So we can end the meditation there. So the see, hear, feel practice really helps us see all of that in real time, having sensory clarity and equanimity with what's arising, so that when all of this becomes kind of habitual, life is much more easily dealt with, because there's this kind of light, dreamy quality. I'm not saying that's my experience all the time, but it gets lighter and kind of dreamier.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, very good. Well, maybe we can take one more question, then we'll get into the lecture.
Mine was more just a quick comment, but I just wanted to tell Alex that he's not alone in the way he feels about that. And I honestly attributed a lot of it to myself and the way that I think. And then I'm seeing people that are obviously different from me having that same experience. So I definitely experienced that too, where I got overwhelmed quite often if I let myself get hung up in that overwhelmingness,
Sure. And let me say that that's one of the benefits of Sangha or community, where people are meditating and talking about it, because we can all normalize our experience. I think fully 50% of teaching meditation is just telling people, nope, you're fine, keep going. Yep, it's not a problem. Yep, normal experience. You're doing good, keep going. Okay, cool. There's one question here from Brian Vitkamp. I'll speak to that. Cedric, could you speak a bit about boredom? In my regular concentration practice, it's easier to stay focused. With see, hear, feel, there was more effort and more boredom coming up. I noted it, but it was still pulling me away from the practice. Well, so first off, it's fine if boredom comes up. That's Actually, so we did a retreat yesterday, and there was one participant that talked about how bored they were in the retreat. Like they would meditate, they were dealing with all this boredom. And so it's all part of it. And boredom is something that gets kind of metabolized and equanimized in the practice. You just kind of work through it, and it becomes less and less of an issue. So that's one comment. And then another comment that I'd make is that boredom is actually a kind of subtle and kind of dull aversion towards the present moment. And that's, first off, that's perfectly fine. It's fine to be aversive towards the present moment. But when we practice more generally, and then when we're specifically more aware of that, it becomes less of a problem through time. So that's, I hope that that spoke to your question. Is there anything else pressing? Otherwise, we'll move on.
Yeah, there's actually one thing about lucid dreaming.
Oh, yeah.
I remember you gave a little tip last week.
Yeah. Mm-hmm, yeah.
You said that we can do the see, hear, feel as we go to sleep.
Yes.
And then after that, remind ourselves that we will notice ourselves when we are dreaming.
Right.
And then try to hold on to that attention. Like don't drift off to sleep, but actually be aware of our consciousness as we drift off. That's so hard to do. I find myself just losing consciousness every night for the past week. Is there any other tips you can give us regarding holding on to like the awareness as we drift off to sleep?
Just keep practicing it. Meditate before you go to bed. Then also, if you have any insomnia, like totally reframe the insomnia as like a really special opportunity to meditate. And then, so if you have that insomnia, then sit up in your bed, sit on your pillow, or sit on the side of your bed, meditate. Do whatever practice you're doing, and then go back. And then resist going to sleep. And then when you really are getting so tired you can't resist it, then go to sleep. And then while you're lying down, try to hold on to consciousness. And then also do that little mantra or that setting the intention that I set the intention to be aware that I'm dreaming while I'm dreaming, and saying that 3 times. And then just try to keep holding on to it. And it's a practice. Also, it's helpful to have a dream journal, because that helps keep you kind of accountable. And then one other technique is during the day, you can kind of ask yourself, is this real? Is this a dream? And like pinch yourself like, hey, is there something weird about this scene? And then if you develop that habit during the day, you're more likely to develop that for that to arise in the night, and then thereby know when you're dreaming, and thereby develop lucid dreaming.
I see. All right, sounds good. Sounds fun.
Yeah, good. And then here's one more comment. So, Exploring the World of Lucid Dreaming by Stephen LaBerge is an old but amazing book on lucid dreaming. Yes, I can attest to that. Okay, great. So let's move on to the new material from the day. So today we're going to be going over loving kindness, metta meditation. So first, I just want to read this little kind of paragraph about the importance of the heart practices. So the way I think of the path is that you need to develop both heart and wisdom through the respective practices. So, and again, a wisdom practice is like see, hear, feel, or breath concentration. And then a heart practice is something like loving kindness or tonglen or compassion meditation, etc. I think that the heart practices are actually more important than the wisdom practices. The heart practices can heal your mundane psychology and make your life pleasant and practice much easier. They are also more useful in daily life in many ways. They are more in line with daily life. They make insight, and we're talking about the heart practices. So the heart practices make insight practice much easier and healthier, as they help you metabolize the difficult insights that come up when you do the wisdom practices. Every time there is a significant insight, there is like a grief cycle that gets run through. This is similar to the progress of insight. But in the grief, so there's the insight, then there's denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. If you have heart practices going, then all that gets smoothed out and you know how to be with yourself in a kind way. So it's very important. Okay, good. And then just one more note about that. So doing the heart practices helps us correct the negativity bias that the mind naturally has. Supposedly 85% of our thoughts are negative on average if you've not trained your mind. Just think about that. Okay.